Tonight we're going to work on the 65 Fastback. It's been on my mind a lot lately. It's something that needs to be done. We're on a roll with this car, and that's what we're going to focus on tonight. We're going to get on this. I know you guys probably want to see some Fox Body content, and that is coming, but it's also very important that we focus on what we're passionate about at the time, and at the moment it's the 65 Fastback, so aka the Gray Ghost. Let's talk about a few of the things that we've got for the car and that we're going to install tonight. One of those is going to be a new radiator. Now this particular radiator I got off eBay, super cheap. I don't know anything about them. I don't know if they'll last, if they're any good. It seems to be good. This thing was only like $100 and something. Very, very cheap, but looks to be the radiator that we need. So we're gonna get that installed tonight. Also, my old blower motor quit working. It worked like a while back when me and my dad were kind of going through all the electronics on the car. So we picked up a new blower motor and we're gonna go ahead and stab this thing in. What I wanna do is get all of the wiring stuff done behind the dash, so that way we can go ahead and button the dash up. So in the last video, my camera kind of went crazy on me and I wasn't able to show you guys everything, but all the wiring under the car is pretty much done. We just need to plug it all in so all of these gauges work. So what we're going to do is basically just rebuild this thing. We're going to buy a new bezel and a new lens kit, and this thing should be fine. I've had a lot of people ask, what's the deal with this car? This must be a 66 because it basically has a 66 dash in it. So if you guys don't know, this right here is a 66 cluster. Well, so here's the deal with this car. In 65, you had a couple of options to where you could get the 66 dash, style dash. That would have been a GT car. This is not a GT car that we know of. Or either a deluxe, aka pony interior car. This was a pony interior car, which is why you have this notch right here. This notch allows the 66 style dash or the GT style dash in a 65. So as you can tell, that's factory. That's not been cut. Typically, if you install one of those dashes in one of these cars, you're going to have to cut this out. As you can see, that was done by the factory. So this is a 65 Fastback, just with pony interior, so that's why we got that. I do believe this car had a console. I feel pretty sure it had a console in it, but it didn't have a console whenever we got it. Anyway, we're going to roll the car out, drain this radiator, put the new one in. Thought I had moved the car back enough. So no worries, guys. There's no antifreeze or anything like that. That's just all rusty crap from that old radiator right there. So it just had regular water in it. Anyway, let's go ahead and get this thing out. If this ever happens to you, get it on your concrete. You don't want to stain your concrete. Rinse it off immediately, because if you don't, it will stain your concrete. So let me go ahead and get all that cleaned up. I'll get back to you guys in just a minute. So we got our fan on, got our spacer. We're good to go there. So what I want to do now is go ahead and try to set this radiator in and see if it works out. Fins are a little dented up on it, but overall, yeah, that'll work. I'm gonna go ahead and button up all the hoses, get out all that stuff done, and put some water in this thing and see what we got. All right, looking pretty good. No leaks so far. And we do have a fan shroud over here, right there, but it's not going to work with this particular setup, so we'll have to come up with something else. But this car should be fine without a fan shroud, but I would like to try to find one that will work. So it's been so long since I've driven this car, I forgot where the wiper and the light switch went. So I had the light switch over here, which it will go over here, but the wipers will not go over here. So it took me over an hour to figure out what I had done wrong, and I actually had to look it up online because I could not remember. So, but right now we've got everything in here. These are all of our, you know, new accessories, if you will. I didn't get a chance to really show you guys that last time, but and I still have to paint that. I actually forgot about it. But other than that, guys, I've just been working on getting all of my grounds. Now, this may look like a rat's nest to a lot of you, but it looks so much better than what it did when we first started. If I can find a picture, I'll throw it up for you guys, but it's getting there. There's really only a couple of bad wires on the car, and I replaced those. So, you know, this thing actually has a functioning cigarette lighter now. Like I said before, all the cables work. So what I'm going to do now is go ahead and try to get this cluster in the car and see if we can get some type of signal, especially oil pressure. So I've got all that wired up now, hooked up. Those wires had been cut, so I just kind of spliced them in, soldered them in for right now, then we'll loom it all up, make it look nice later. So for now, let's go ahead and get this cluster in the car. What I'm going to do from here is, I was having an issue with my ground. I didn't have ground on the back of my gauge cluster. So what I'm going to do now is just test to see if we have ground, and we do. So, and that's important because the way these bulbs work, they're just a single wire bulb and they have power coming through them, so you have to ground them. I'll show you guys what I'm talking about over here. So as you can see, you have to ground these. So we should be good to go there. I'm just going to go ahead and start plugging these things in and seeing what we got. So that will suffice for right now, because what I want to check for is to make sure that we have oil pressure. So I'm going to start the car up and see if this gauge works. Now guys, this will be the first time that any of this stuff has worked, so cross your fingers here. And that's not good. So the sending unit could be bad on the car. I figured I'd go ahead and show you guys what I did here, because maybe you could apply this, you know, at some point on a project or whatever. There's many different ways of testing your gauges, but this is what I did. So as you all saw, as soon as we turned the key on, our oil pressure shot way up, right? What I did was just swap the wires around. This is the wire that would go to my temperature sensor. I hooked it up down here to my oil pressure sending unit, and then I swapped the wire that went to the oil pressure over here to the water temp. So if my theory is correct, the car is going to show that it's running hot. Should be able to see the gauge, and look at that. And as soon as we turn it on, our temperature, water temperature, shoots up. So what does that mean? Well, basically that the oil pressure sending unit is bad. It's showing ground when it shouldn't show ground. If you don't know, that's how these gauges work. They send a ground signal back, and depending on how much ground they show, that's the deal. So your temperature sending unit, when you hook it up and the car's cold and you switch it on, the gauge doesn't move, correct? All right, that's because it's cold and it's not sending a ground signal. As it warms up, it'll start to show ground. Anyway, that's how all that works. I'm gonna go ahead, fiddle around with this a little bit. I think I've pretty much got the wiring sorted out, and I'm gonna move over to the blower motor, and then we're gonna test that out to make sure it works as well. So let me go ahead and get started on that. As you can see, we got our new blower motor here. This thing's nice. That's sweet. Okay, so our connections are right over here, if you guys can see them. So if everything is hooked up correctly, we should be able to go in here, switch the key on, flip the switch over here, and this fan should run. So we'll switch the key on. Everything looks to be off. Okay, we're good there. If we flip this switch, Well, it tried to move. It's always something. All right, well, I'm gonna go ahead, try to figure this out, see what we got. The way this works is this back here, this assembly grounds to the dash. All right, so it just wasn't making a good ground. I wiggled it. The assembly has a ground now. This wire now is a ground, which is your yellow wire. Let's see here. Are we grounded anymore? No. Okay, so we lost our ground. Okay, see how the ground comes back? This thing is just not grounded good. This is challenging, to say the least, because you're constantly chasing, you know, a bad ground or something like that. So I know everybody's going to say you should have bought a new wiring harness, but I mean, there's nothing wrong with this. It's the fact that I don't know where all the grounds go, so I just have to chase them all down, figure it all out. But I will get it, and I'll get back to you guys when I do. So let's switch it off. Nice. Check it out, guys. Low and high. Sweet. Yes. Success. So that was a loose ground. That's what we had. We now have the blower motor in, so I'm just going to go ahead, hook it back up real quick and test it, see if it blows out the vents like it's supposed to, which I'm sure it will. Make sure all of our doors and everything like that operate correctly. And as you can see, it's pretty easy to actually hook up the heater hoses, so we're going to wait on those for right now, and we have to run all that over here. So let's go ahead and hook this thing up and see if it works. All right, I guess I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up tonight. But one thing that I do want to say is we're all going to get discouraged from time to time. These cars are going to test our patience. Life is going to test our patience. I know I get upset. I get aggravated. I want to just like throw my hands up, say to hell with it all. But you have a choice. And that choice is you can either be a pessimist or you can be an optimist. I choose to stay optimistic. Sure, you're going to throw a wrench, you're going to kick something, you know, you're going to show out a little bit, but it's really all about how quickly you recover and how quickly you get a hold of yourself. So my point is this, you know, we come out a lot of times with the best intentions of working on our cars, and you know, we want to grab a beer and we're just going to take our time, and before you know it, you're upset, you're cussing, you're fussing, you're throwing stuff, and you know, you just hate your car. Trust me, it's all mental, okay? Every bit of that's mental. You can control that, and I just recommend to take a deep breath, enjoy the time that you have, and get back to work. It's that simple. Just don't let it get to you. Trust me, we all go through it. Don't think you're alone. Don't think you show out more than the next guy. That's not true. Anyway, with that being said, let's go ahead and look at what we've done. Tonight we put the new radiator in. Went ahead and put a new top radiator hose. Also, the car has a new bottom radiator hose. We put the fan on with the spacer. Painted the fan, painted the spacer. Doesn't look the best, but it'll work. Got all the dash stuff pretty much working. There's only two connections that I have to round up, and that's going to be for the voltage. I actually at the moment do not know where they are, but I'm going to find them. Either way, we got a lot of the wires kind of tidied up, if you will. We're waiting on, this goes to your windshield wiper motor. We're waiting on a couple different connections that we can't do yet. I'm going to continue to, you know, zip tie stuff up, make it look nice. I ran an extra ground earlier from right here down here to the body of the car. You can't really see it, but it's down there. And I did that because this plate grounds to the dash of the car, and for whatever reason that ground was not that good. So I just went ahead, ran a fresh ground, to add to it, and we're not having any trouble now with the motor. The motor's working great over there, and I'll show you that in just a second. Also came in and with a Dremel and cleaned the fuse box, all the terminals, because we were having a bad connection right here. So I went ahead and did that. If you have a bad connection, like something like that, what it'll do is, instead of spreading the load around the fuse, I wish I had one. Well, here we go. Instead of spreading the load around where it connects to the fuse, what it'll do is it'll create hot spots where there's, you know, only a certain tiny little area that is making contact, and that puts a lot of current through a little bitty spot, which is why people recommend you go ahead and replace your wiring and things like that and fuse boxes, because of that reason. But if you go in and you clean all that off, you add a dab of dielectric grease, things like that, trust me, you're fine. But you do need to test it to make sure, because if you're having hot spots and you can see it, you need to really go ahead and address that. And if you can't, that might be the time to go ahead and put a wiring harness, fuse box, whatever you need to in your car. All right, so inside, we didn't really do a whole lot. We swapped around the switches right here. Now, you might not be able to see this very much, but we actually do have lights. They are so dim you can't even see them on camera. Here. Wow, that is ultra dim. Anyway, we got all that working. Let's go ahead and show you guys real quick. Look at that. All of our flaps work. Look, the 65 is my baby. It's come a long way in a short period of time, but we still got a long ways to go. But we're going to get after this thing. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I wanted to take you along for more of the ride on all the little ins and outs that we've done. Let me know if you like that type of content. Also, I did a little bit of wire looming right up through here. Just simple stuff across the intake. Made a little custom wire loom up here, and we're not done yet. I'm actually probably going to hide the solenoid on the back side in here and actually run everything through grommets, kind of like a little miniature wire tuck, if you will. Take this wire right here, even though I did loom it, probably run it through and hide it all up. So either way, she's looking pretty nice though. It will be cleaned up a little better than this, but all that takes time. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this video up, and as always, thanks for watching.